Hey everybody, what's going on? Steven back with another review. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Sony RX10 Mark II. There are some things that I love about this camera and some things that I hate about this camera. This review is going to focus on video. Given all the video features that it has, it is more of a video camera than a photography camera. First thing I want to talk about is the body. Now, I gotta say, I really love the grip on this thing. It feels like a professional camera when you're holding it, much better than my Sony a6000. It's weather sealed, so you got no problems if you're out and you gotta shoot in some rough conditions. It'll hold up, no problem. All the buttons and switches feel pretty solid. I don't think we're gonna have any problems with them breaking. They should be able to take some pretty rough wear and tear. The startup time on this is pretty fast. It takes about a second or two, and the pop-up flash that it comes with works pretty well. It's about what you expect from a built-in flash. It's nothing amazing. The RX10 Mark II does come with the Sony multi-interface shoe, so some of Sony's accessories can be used alongside it if they have the multi-shoe interface. One notable feature is that this camera has a LCD display at the top, which will tell you your aperture, your shutter speed. You can push the button there to brighten it up. And it's actually a really handy feature. You don't have to look at the screen or the viewfinder to check your settings. You've also got your mode dial off to the side there. Of course, you have your shutter button. You've got your on-off. You've got your exposure compensation, which in my opinion, unless you shoot in auto, you don't really need the exposure compensation dial, and it's non-programmable, unlike this button right here. So in my opinion, the exposure compensation dial is a bit of wasted space. And then on the top there, you've got the two microphones. You've got some stereo microphones that actually have decent audio quality. The viewfinder and the LCD display screen both look fantastic. They're similar to what you would find on maybe like an A7S as opposed to a cheaper model like the A6000. One of the things I didn't particularly like about the camera is that the zoom function is not super smooth. It does stick a little bit, and you can see that when you're playing it back. So you have a bit of a jump there while you're zooming in and out of stuff. On the left side of the camera, you've got a microphone in, a headphone out, an HDMI out, and a USB cable for charging or file transfer. So pretty standard there, but I do like that you get the headphone out so you can monitor your audio. Now on the front of the camera, you've got your focus settings, so you can switch between manual and autofocus, as well as the battery compartment over here, where you can pop your battery in and out. It's not really affected by whether or not the camera's on a tripod, because it's way off to the side there, so that's a nice design feature. I do like the fact that you can customize a lot of the buttons on this thing, but like I said, the exposure compensation dial is some wasted space because you can't program it, but just about everything else on here you can program, so that's a big plus. Now off to the other side, you'll see that we've got our memory card slot, our NFC, and it takes SD cards as well as MS cards, which are Sony's. The display does tilt up and down, but it doesn't rotate or flip out, so you can view from the top or bottom angles, but if you're filming yourself, it can be a little tricky. So if you're looking for something to take selfies with, this may not be the camera for you, but it's great if you're behind the camera. Like I said, it's really good quality. The menu system is about what you'd expect to find in a Sony camera if you've ever owned one. It's simplistic and effective, but it's not super visually appealing. You can record in 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second. You can record in full HD at 120 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and 24 frames per second. It also has a high frame rate record mode where you can record in 240, 480, or 960 frames per second and slow that down for super slow motion. You do lose quality on the images, and it's more like a party trick than something you'd use as a professional feature, to be honest. And speaking of professional features, this thing allows picture profiles, which are extremely customizable. You can adjust just about anything you could ever dream of, and it has the ability to record in S-Log, so post-produced images will look pretty good. I'm not the best at color grading, but I got some pretty decent results out of it. Now let's talk about the lens for a little bit. It is a solid f2.8 lens. The lens itself is an 8mm to 73mm, but the full frame equivalent is 24mm to 200mm. So that's pretty impressive range for an f2.8 lens. And I'll also note that the lens does shoot macro, and you can get some pretty decent results out of it. It does have the aperture dial on the front there, and you can turn the clicks on or off. So if you want a smooth transition between your aperture settings, you can do that, or you can have it enabled so you can feel when you've changed your aperture to a certain amount, and that way you can count it as it clicks. I'm going to show you some video samples now from some footage that I got. It's got really nice bokeh that you can get out of the lens. You have to zoom in a little bit, but I was not disappointed. The spheres are very round, no football shapes or hexagons, and that's what I like to see. ISO performance is average. If you're shooting in low light conditions, I suggest increasing the contrast, or else you can get some extremely unsavable muddy footage. The slowed down footage from the 120 frames per second looks fantastic. It's better quality than the GH4 even. I didn't really notice any problems with moire or aliasing at all. And it has a built-in ND filter, which really doesn't hurt when you're filming outdoors. When all is said and done, I'd say that this could be used for a professional video camera. It does have a tendency to overexpose, so don't be afraid to shoot a bit darker. And like I said, keep the contrast higher on it and you'll get some really nice images. There's about a million customization options for this camera, and that's one of the reasons that I consider it to be a professional grade camera. The sensor's a bit on the small side, but if you can live with that, I think this camera will suit your needs perfectly. I'd say this camera is worth the money that you pay for it. You can get them from around $1,500. And I'd say if you're looking to up your video skills but you're not quite at the professional level, this is a good place to start. And while the smaller 1-inch sensor does affect your depth of field and the image quality a little bit, I'd say that this is almost on par with my A6000 as far as video quality goes, and that one has an APS-C size sensor, which is only one step down from a full frame camera. So keep that in mind. And that's going to do it for the review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're all well informed now as to whether or not you want to get this camera. Subscribe to see more videos, and as always, be good to each other.